Okay, so last lecture was a guest lecture from someone from Deloitte Digital, and she was talking a little bit about the difference between project development, which Deloitte Digital just starting to do, product development, is how they refer to it, and consultancy projects. Okay, so this course has been all about how you make an original product. So the sort of implication is that you might want to make this if you're an entrepreneur and then try and sell it. There are some businesses that do things like that. Game development obviously is one of them. There's also a lot of work in consultancy like Deloitte, where they charge a lot of money, and sort of charge for a period of time, or they charge for a particular project. And basically, when you're allocated to that time, you're doing really whatever the client wants. Okay, so it's a little bit less, unlike the product development this course, where you're trying to find out from the user what they want. You have somebody usually quite powerful, usually quite rich, telling you what to do, and it might be difficult to work out exactly what they want, but they are actively telling you to do things. Okay, so it's a slightly different relationship, it's a slightly different job. But a lot of the skills and techniques and principles all still apply. One of the things about consultancy is you probably won't get into that sort of 80-20 polishing period unless the client is specifically asking for that work. Okay? So it's a slightly different kind of job. Okay. So first off, a few things. So next Monday is the last lab, which is a testing lab. So it's very much like a user testing session, except this time it's about testing the features of your website. So you may still want to be working on the website after this point, but this is just to go through the process, very similar to the user testing process. But this time your set of instructions to give someone, you're not trying to get their emotions or their opinions or their impressions from things. You're just asking them specifically to check whether things are broken, use their ingenuity to think of ways that might cause your website to fail. Okay, so when you get testing in industry, there's obviously a range of different kinds of testing, but high quality testing can involve everything from automated systems. So I've made a lot of these systems myself in industry, where you literally get a virtual monkey, if you like, to randomly press buttons and keys on a product and see what happens, and see if you can break it. So that will cover a certain kind of range of problems. In games, it was quite useful because we had artificial intelligence characters. So we could just turn that artificial intelligence on, and then they would randomly play through the game, and that would cover a certain amount of it. And then you have human beings who are playing through the game, playing through the game all the time. And then you have professional testers, and professional testing is a very important subject. And they work in very strange ways sometimes, and they're very ingenious in some cases, because they try to find ways to deliberately break a product. Some companies like Amazon are extremely good at this, are extremely good at making robust systems. So one of the things that Amazon is doing is that they actually deliberately break parts of their system. So the way the Amazon systems work is that mostly they're implemented with web applications, and the web applications communicate between one another in order to deliver Amazon services. So what they do is they have a process where they deliberately send sort of corrupted or bad data to different points in the system, so that every part of Amazon can deal with if any other part of Amazon fails, if that makes sense, or starts sending malicious information or broken data. So people go to great lengths to make very, very robust systems that don't fall over. And one of the things that you'll find is as you get towards polishing something like a web application, you will start to have to deal with crazy or malicious users. Now you may not quite get that far. I'll talk a little bit about security, web security at the end. But there's a whole additional, beyond the scope of this course, set of ideas and techniques that are needed to deal with people who are deliberately trying to undermine or break into your website. Okay, that's just something to bear in mind. But in terms of this testing lab, it's the same system as was the user testing lab. So you have a deadline of midnight Thursday this week, to get whatever functionality you want in place to be tested. And then you have at 5 p.m. on Friday to make sure your web app runs. So that on Monday you can come in time for the labs and then take your turns to test each other's web applications. Okay, same process as before. Right. Okay. So after that lab, after that week, you will have Easter holidays. When you come back from Easter holidays, you'll be into week 11. And week 11 is kind of the big deadline for this course, largely. So the end of that week is sort of the end of your stuff. And the deadline for the Monday on the 12th week, the final week of the module, requires that at the beginning of that week, you have 2 videos, which is sort of summing up your contribution to the project. So it's summing up the project and your contribution to it. So one is a video that you will produce as a team. And this is a video which is really just a video version of a live demo that you will do on the 12th, on the final week of the course on the Monday, demonstrating your project, which I'll explain in a moment. And then another 10-minute video that you will produce individually, sort of explain what you've got from the course and your contribution to the project, okay? So, in terms of the project videos that you do as a group, these are the key things to communicate in that, and sort of the order to communicate. And this also applies to the live demo that you would give, okay? So, in terms of how you're being assessed, a big chunk of your assessment is going to come from your contributions to the web app, okay? So try to get through the labs as best you can. That's very important. Do peer grading and provide comments to each other. That's also an important part of where your mark will come from. And then the final part of this project, which is sort of summing up how you contributed to the project, comes from both your submissions through the web app and the comments that you leave on each other's pages and contributions, but also these final demonstrations, okay? So in terms of the final project, you've got how well does, first does your design make sense? So that's a key thing with this project that you won't really get assessed anywhere else. So have you identified end users and customers for your product that are reasonable targets for your product? Do you have a reasonable understanding of what they might want, what they might need? Has the appearance of your website been constructed in such a way to attract that audience? Okay. And your key features, are these key features that are likely to be important to those users? Right? Does the design all make sense? There is no problem with rewriting the design now. In fact, it's a very good idea to rewrite the design to make sure that your design matches what you deliver. And your design, what you deliver, all makes sense. There's a sensible story there that says this particular person is going to, or this particular group of people are going to want to use this website for this reason. It looks like something that they would want and has features that they would want. And either those features have been implemented and they're working, or you know some additional work is required. So if you wanted to do something like have a secure website, or you wanted to have a payment system, or something like that, that's beyond the scope of this course. But you can still put in place indications that that's what you would intend to deliver, right? So all of that is sort of the design of the project. This final bit in brackets here is to say, in terms of the functionality you want to make sure that your website has, the intention is that all of your websites would have the ability for users to upload information through a form, and they would be able to view that information in some way, which is basically what the labs are taking you through, and the lectures last week also include the viewing part of that, okay? So make sure that your websites have that capability in them, and that you demonstrate that capability in your video and your live demo, okay? And that will give you as many marks as you can get, okay? Right, in terms of your individual video, then the previous one is more almost a sales pitch kind of thing. This one is more of a personal explanation of how the experience has been for you developing the project, okay? So it's
more about how you have personally contributed to the project over time. It's only 10 minutes, so it's a mini description of what you've done and what you've been involved with. Any experiences that you've had with engaging with the team, any difficulties you've had, and also any help you've given to other people or help that you've received. It's not a bad thing to receive help at all, it's a good thing. Which parts of the project you found most challenging, and what did you learn from the experience? Okay? So it's just a sort of reflective video explaining your experience and contributions in the project. Right? And this will also provide further evidence for your contribution to the project. So the reason for the videos in particular is if you come to query your grades or your marks, this provides strong evidence then for your contributions to the project and the project as a whole, okay? Beyond what's in the web app, okay? So week 11, which is the first week back after Easter, that is the week in which you will complete all development work for the project, okay? It's going to have exactly the same time deadlines as you get this week, which is Thursday midnight feature complete, and Friday 5 p.m. bug fixes complete. Okay, so we definitely want a runnable web server on Monday for the demo day. You're definitely going to lose marks if you don't have a runnable thing ready for Monday, and you don't want to risk that by doing that, pulling it on ladder or Sunday or something crazy like that. Okay. And then in the final week, you're going to do the demo. So you'll be allocated a time on the Monday to come in as a team, and you'll get the thing running, and there'll be many sessions running in parallel. And you have 10 minutes to go through your demonstration, which will be very like your video, and then you'll have 10 minutes for questions. And there'll be different groups of people who will be assessing your work on that, and they'll have a sort of structured set of questions that they'll ask you. Okay? You need to upload the videos before that point as well, okay? And make sure you turn up, and you turn up on time, okay? And the web server runs, because they'll all affect your work. Okay, right, that's that. Now I'm going to go through probably the most requested thing after the other things I did last week, which is some form of login system. So quite a few of you have want the login capability within your website. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how far we can get through the lecture today, and then if it runs over, we'll carry on tomorrow. Okay? So we're going to be building on the same code that we were working on last week. And the very first thing is there's two parts to this, or additional parts that we need to add. One is some page for signing up and registering a user. And so there will be a page which you fill in the username and password that you're going to have for signing up. And we need an additional model, a user model to store something. And then we're going to have a login page as well. So that's a page that looks very similar to the sign up page, and some login submit page which responds when you click on the form. Okay, so what does that look like? Right, so good. So what I've done is, okay, sorry, just checking that. So I've made some of those changes already. So you can see here we have a user model that's been added, and that's just got a username and password. You may well want to, elaborate on these. These are just like the simplest way of delivering this that you can get. We have two pages. Now, they're just HTML pages. They could be dynamic pages, but they don't need to be. I'll show you. And they're just made in Pingendu. Okay, so very, very simple, just dragging across the form there from Pingendu, and a couple of minor changes to that default form then. So for the login page, we've added the action equals login submit, and method equals get. And for the two elements,
we've got an email address, which is what I'm using for the username, and that's got a name of username, and then a password field, and that's got a name of password. Okay, so those changes were made over the default that you get when you do stuff in Pingendu. And almost exactly the same then for the sign up page, except the action here is sign up submit. Method is still get. Name is username and name is password, same as before. Okay, so those are just sitting in the HTTP docs directory for this project. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is change this index.html page. So some of these commented out things I'm going to uncomment as I talk through it, but I'll just do them one step at a time. Okay, so this is slightly different from what you've seen before, just a few things cleaned up. But the main thing that's been added is this. Okay, so what we've added is, it's very crude looking, but it will functionally show you how it works. So we've got two headings there with links inside them, and the links go to the sign up page and the login page. Okay, but other than that, it's largely the same. So if I run that again and we refresh the page, should be okay. Yeah, okay. So I've deleted the database in this case, so there's no entries in the database. But we've got the sign up and login. Okay, so we'll go to sign up, and this is just loading the static page, that HTML page from the server. Okay, and then because it's because I selected it as a type email, it doesn't matter what type you make it, but it's fussy, it wants a valid email. And because it's a password, in this case, you don't see the letters that are typed. Okay, we'll click on submit. Does a very similar thing as before, right? It just goes to the sign up page, passing in the username and the password information. Okay, I will repeatedly mention this. This is not a secure way of implementing a login system, but it's a way for you to demonstrate in a prototype how it works. If you were using it internally within an organization where you trusted the people who were using it, that would be fine, you know. But there are a number of changes that you would need to make it secure. Okay, so what does the sign up submit page actually do? Well, the sign up submit page is a dynamic page in this case. Okay, so it's very similar to other examples I've shown you where a form leads to the creation of something that gets put in the database. So in this case, it's a user. The user is being created here, and the two properties of the user, the username and password, are being set. And they're being set using the information that we extracted from the form, the username and password, okay? And then we're going to open up a map, which is where we're going to store all the accounts, the user accounts. And we're just going to put that user into the database. And we're going to use the username because we're going to guarantee unique username for every user. Okay, so that's fine. We don't need a unique ID anymore because we've got a username. And then we'll save the changes to disk. Okay, and then the page will say something like, as it does now, you have now signed up, and click here to log in. Okay, so there's one change that we probably want to make to this sign up page, because it does have a rather serious security issue, which is that if I log in, if I sign up with my username and password, and then somebody else signs up with my username but a different password, then this line here will just overwrite my account with the new account, right? Because we'll both have the same username. So just as a little bit of checking, I've added this extra code here. Okay, so I'll show you what it does. Okay. So what it does is it checks the map, and it checks if there is already an entry in the map. That's what this contains key function does, with the same username. So if there's already a user in the database with that username, then this code runs. And this code looks very similar to any other page you would have seen. It constructs a big string, it builds a web response, and it returns true. So what happens is that if this is true, then you're going to get this page. If that is false, then you're going to get this page. Okay? So this page is very simple, and it just says username already taken, and it redirects you to the sign up page to choose another one. Okay? And hopefully we can test that. Okay, so if I go back to sign up and I go Frank and Q and I type something in, okay. Oh, sorry, better recompile the program first. Okay. Good. Okay, username already taken. Okay, so you can see that's working. Great. So now we'll sign up with something else, or in fact we can just go back to the index page. Okay, and now we want to log in. So again, the login page is just coming from that Pingendu page we mocked up. Doesn't have any Java code associated with it at all. So use the same credentials. Okay. So I'll put a breakpoint here. Okay, so it's taken me to this website. It's happy with the login, and it gives me the option to go to the front page. Okay, so how is that implemented? Okay, so very similar to the submit page, we're getting the credentials, the username and password. And okay, just as a basic version, it lets anybody in. Okay, just go straight to the page, that's fine. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to see if the database actually knows about that user. Okay, so we've got similar kind of code here as the previous one, except this time it's got the exclamation mark, which means the opposite. So this statement will be true if the database doesn't have this username in it. So if I type in a random username that hasn't signed up, this code will run. It does a very similar thing. It constructs a page that says there is an unknown username, and it redirects you to the login page. Okay, so because we know the username now is in the database, so if that isn't true, or in other words, the users does contain the key, okay, then we'll skip the if and we'll get down here. So what we want to do is we want to extract the user object from the database, users.get. Okay, so this is the MV map here we're looking at. And we're just doing .get with the username, and we've got the user back. Okay, so we just want to check the password now. Okay, so we've got another bit of code here that checks the password. Now, a very nasty bug you can get is if you do code like this. I think it's a horrible feature of Java. C++ will do the same. If you type something like this, right? So if you make an if with that, which is what you would think you'd need to type, that will always fail. And it's a really nasty feature. What that statement literally means is, so a string is an object. So it's located somewhere in memory on the machine. So user.password, that's a bit of memory that's associated with that user object somewhere over here. And then this password is something that we extracted from somewhere else in the machine over here. And this equals is just testing if these memory locations are the same. Are they literally the same object? Which is not what people mean 90% of the time when they write this line. What they mean is the contents of this string the same as the contents of this other string? Okay, but so don't write this because it won't work. Instead, you need to call a function on the string called content equals. and that will match if these two strings are the same. Okay, very easy mistake to make. So this line, because it's got an exclamation mark, is saying if the password doesn't equal the password that was typed in the form, then do this stuff. Very similar again. It's constructing a page, it's indicating the password is incorrect, and redirecting the user. Now, security advisors recommend that you shouldn't tell people whether the username or the password is incorrect. You should give the least amount of information back to the users. I think it compromises the usability a little bit, but that's their recommendation. But I'm just showing you the structure so you can kind of understand it and debug it at least. Okay, so if the username and the password are correct now, then this will run and you'll be able to log in, okay? And there'll be a link here which takes you to index.html. Okay, right. So in terms of mocking up a login system, that will get you most of what you want to do, okay? What you could do, for example, you see, is if the login page was like the first page you went to, or something like that, then an unsophisticated technical user would only go to pages where there were links taking them to the next page, right? So you could have this link take you to some particular website, particular web page name, and the thing that was like a barrier to them getting access to the rest of the website was just that they didn't know the path. Okay, so users would have to go through the login page in order to get a page where this link appears. Okay, so it's not very secure, but in terms of a prototype, it shows you the stages of going through it. Okay, so if you want to mock up a login system, you can stop there. Okay, but if you want to go a bit further and make something which is still a website that could be compromised with a more sophisticated attacker, but will stop most people who are just casually interacting with it, don't have a lot of technical knowledge. You need to know a little bit more web technology in order to do that. So let's go through some of it. The number one key thing is JavaScript. Okay? So I have deliberately avoided covering too much, or really any JavaScript on this course, partly because JavaScript is very similar to Java, so you might get a little confused. I'd rather discourage you from doing too much JavaScript programming, because at the moment you're learning Java, and when you try to learn two languages at once, it will kind of confuse you, okay? So I'm trying to show you here just a minimal amount of JavaScript to be able to implement the login facilities, because I know that some of you would like that capability. Okay, so how does JavaScript work? Well, within your HTML page, you can place these script tags. And within those script tags, you can describe functions and code in JavaScript. JavaScript is very similar to Java. One of the big differences is it doesn't have types. It tries to work out what the types are as the program is running. And so it's generally harder to debug. It's easier, you can easily write JavaScript code and not realize that it's broken. And it's a little bit harder to find out how it's working. So what I've included in here is a line, this window.location.href, that will take the browser to a new page. Okay, that's just an example of the kind of thing that you could write in a JavaScript function. So what you're seeing here is that the window.location.href, all of the things that you have on your web page, all your forms and all your headings and divs and paragraphs and pictures and things like this, they can all be accessed using strings like this and manipulated, and you can do very fancy things with JavaScript. Although at this stage I kind of discourage you from going too deeply into that again, because the main thing is that you're comfortable with Java programming, and this is just enough to do the logging stuff. Okay. So, okay, you can create functions, say JavaScript, and you can put for loops in them, you can have if statements, you can define variables, you can do a lot of the core programming elements within those functions. How do you run those functions? Well, for all the objects, the HTML objects that you put in your page,
So there's a body tag, for example, that goes around all the contents of every page. You can add lines like this on load equals, and then quotes whatever it is that whatever JavaScript function you want to run. And whenever that sort of an event occurs, that will run. Okay, so if you put that line in your web page, whenever the page was loaded, so all the pictures are derived and everything, then that function would run and it would go to a different page. Okay, so it's a slightly weird thing to do, but it's something you can do. A more useful thing might be to run a JavaScript program when you click on a button. Okay, and those are the two kind of most common situations in which you tend to use JavaScript function calls. So again, just trying to show you enough to be able to do a login system. So the other thing you need to know to do the next bit of the logging system is cookies. Okay, so what are cookies? Well, everything we've talked about so far stores information on the server. So there's a database running on the server, and the server could be in, France or wherever you like, and you're accessing the website on your machine, and the server somewhere else. So all the web apps that you guys are creating, you store the information on the database on the server. You can, however, temporarily store information on the user's machine, and you can do that with cookies. Okay? So whenever a cookie is stored on the machine, which is really just a string of information, so I'll show you in a second what it looks like. So there's a variable name associated with the cookie, and then there's a string of data. All of the cookies that were put on for a particular website will be stored together, and they will be passed by the browser every time you go to a new page. Okay. They also remain on your machine. They have an expiry date associated with them, and when that expiry date is passed, the cookie will be automatically deleted from the local machine. The user can also manually delete cookies as well, or put the web browser in a form where cookies can't be stored. So some websites won't be able to function if you go into incognito mode, I think, or there's certain ways you can disable cookies. Okay. Right, so if you want to set a cookie, how do you do it? Okay, so this is the code to set a cookie. So it is a JavaScript function, so this would appear in your HTML page. It takes a CNAME there, which is the name of the cookie that you want to store. It takes a value, so these are both strings, and it has a number there at the end, which is the number of days. Okay? The code should look very similar to Java, it's slightly different. So that var is a way of describing a variable. So variables don't have types in JavaScript, or at least they don't specify them like this. It's using a thing called date, which again is very similar to Java's date object. We'll talk about it later on. And you can sort of set the time there. So what this is doing is time is always stored in milliseconds, typically on a computer. Very similar to the get current time milliseconds that we were using previously in Java. So this constructs a string which you assign to document.cookie, and that will cause it to save that to disk on the local machine. Okay? So document.cookie is a slightly weird variable. It's really a function, but every time you assign a string like this, it takes that as an instruction to store that cookie locally. Okay. This is a piece of JavaScript that will clear a cookie, which we'll also be using. Very similar to the path. Basically, you clear a cookie by assigning it an equals of nothing. So you see a CNAME plus, so you're constructing the string, which is CNAME equals semicolon, which means the variable has no value. That's what that is. Okay. And then I have something which I'm not going to go through in too much detail, but if you happen to want to program more complicated things with cookies, you can use this get cookies back from the string in JavaScript,
but I'm not going to dwell on that because we don't need that literally for the login system. Okay, so we'll see how the time is going. We might leave it for next time. But what you can do then is when a user is logging in, you can store the username and password information as a cookie. And so every page that you travel to, that information is being sent over the network. So when you want to make a secure website, you really need to validate the identity every page you go to. Okay? And that's the slightly more complicated version. Now, this isn't secure in the sense that if someone is technically sophisticated enough to monitor network traffic between the browser and the other machine, this web server will be sending the username and password in an unencrypted form over the network, and so they'll be able to read those usernames and passwords. Okay? So to do a more secure version requires a way of doing what's called an SSL connection. So you may have seen HTTPS appear on some websites that uses a thing called SSL. But the details of setting that up and implementing that are sort of beyond the scope of this course. Okay, so we're not going to go into that, but I'm just giving you enough that you could go a little bit further with that. Okay, so just spend a little bit longer and show you how that would logically work for this login system. Okay, so what we're going to do then is this is the login page. So after someone has logged in, we want to store that username and password information. So we validated that the login is correct. Okay, so the password is correct at this point. So we're then passing through into the web browser this new page, and we're adding this JavaScript code to it. Okay, so this JavaScript code has got the same set cookie stuff that I just showed you. And it has this extra function, which is the save login cookie, right? So it's just going to set the cookies on that machine, and it's going to, I'm passing in the username and password that they typed to do that. Okay, so that will appear in the page source, the username and password for that page. Okay, and so then what we want to do is we want to make sure that the cookie is actually set. So we're going to change the body tag so that when it loads, it's going to save the login cookie. Okay. So let's do that again. Okay, so it should have saved the login cookie, and the reason we know this is, so this is Chrome. Firefox will have something similar. On Chrome, if you go to inspect on a page, it will bring up this stuff at the bottom, which gives you debugging information. One of these tabs is called Application. If you click on Application, you will see there's a range of different ways you can store information locally, and cookies is the most universal. And these are the cookies that are stored for this local host. And you can see that it's saved the username and password for this. So every single page that is traveled to that is localhost 8080 will, in fact, will be, that is localhost, will pass this cookie to the web server. Okay. Okay, just a little bit longer. So the next thing we want to do is we want to use that information on the main page of the website. So this is assuming that you want a main page where somebody can come along and look at the page without logging in, but that they get maybe more information if they've logged in, or if they make comment posts, then they can make comment posts when they've logged in, that kind of thing. So what we do is very similar to other sites. So this is the index page. Now, instead of getting it from params, which is where we would get it if a form had been submitted, in this case, we're getting it from this cookies variable, which works just the same way as params, but that is whatever the cookies have passed through. So because we've got username and password cookies stored on the machine, we will get the username and password out on every page. So we can write lines like this at the top of every page and then grab that information back. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to support websites where people have logged in and websites where they haven't. So if they haven't logged in, then these cookies won't be set. So we're just using the username equals null, which is what this will return when a cookie hasn't been set and no one's logged in, as an indication that no one's logged in. But if they do claim to have logged in, we want to make sure that our website isn't being hacked and that the password matches. Okay, so we do a very similar thing that we did in the login page. We get the user's map, and we get that username from the database, which will be null if the user is not in that list. Okay, we also want to check that the password is correct. So if anything has gone wrong here, then either we've done something strange, like if we delete the database on the server, then it won't know about a user, but your local machine might still have a cached cookie or something like that. So there's various situations that might cause this problem. So you want to, so in this case, I'm just returning a page saying there's been some kind of error. Okay, and it's just offering me a click to go back to the index page. Now what this is also doing is it's got another script here, which is clear login cookie. Okay, so what it's doing is it's removing what was stored for the username and the password, and it's doing that whenever that page loads. So if there's any kind of problem with the cookies at all, it will wipe them from the machine so that the next time you click on index, it will be as if you'd logged out. Okay? And if you had a log out button, you could do a very similar thing on a page that responded to that log out submit. Okay? Okay, so that just handles if there's a security issue. So if there isn't and the user has logged in, then username will be whatever the username is. Okay, and we'll go on to here. Now what we can do now is we can add this bit of code here, which says if the username is not equal to null, i.e. someone's logged in, then instead of showing the sign up and login, we could welcome the user or change the website in some way. So we're no longer showing the sign up and login. We might want to offer a log out button or something if they've signed in, right? And other than that, the page is basically the same as it was before. So what does that look like if we run it? Okay. So login complete, go to the front page. Okay, so what we've seen here is we've successfully logged in. It's taken our username and password from the local machine and it's created a new page using that information and welcomed us. And we no longer have the sign up and login information. Okay, so that I think hopefully is enough to get some interesting login facilities if you want. So I'll upload this video and I'll also zip up this code and make it available on the website as well. Just finally before you go, again, some great links there for learning a bit more about JavaScript, a bit more about cookies. And if you want to know how to do a secure web login, that's a good place to start. If you really want to know more, come and see me and I'll talk to you. Okay, thank you very much.